What if the woman mopping your office floors at midnight was the same genius saving your company by day? What if her secret could destroy everything or change it forever? Stay with me, because this story will make you question everything you thought you knew about success and second chances. If this story moved you, don't just scroll away. Hit subscribe right now, drop a comment with the most powerful moment that hit you, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder that talent can come from anywhere. Let's spread this message together. Emma Carter pushed her mop across the polished marble floor of the 30th story executive suite, the faint rhythm of a pop song whispering through her earbuds. It was nearly midnight in Manhattan, the city still glowing far below the windows like scattered diamonds. Her arms ached from hours of scrubbing, but she moved quickly, eager to finish before security made their rounds. The office was quiet, too quiet, and she hummed softly to keep herself company. She didn't notice the elevator doors sliding open until a sharp ding cracked through the silence. Emma froze, mop in hand, her heart skipping. No one came up here at this hour. Her first instinct was to step back into the shadows, but the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps echoed down the corridor. The rhythm was steady, confident, and growing closer. A man's voice cut through the still air, low, urgent, angry. "If we lose one more contract, we're done. Do you hear me? We're done." Emma's stomach clenched. She darted behind the CEO's broad mahogany desk, crouching low, one hand pressed over her mouth. The mop clattered softly against the floor, but the man didn't notice. Through the gap under the desk, she saw polished black shoes step into the office. Ryan Hayes, the CEO himself. His reputation was the stuff of whispers among the night crew, brilliant, ruthless, untouchable. And here he was, pacing in his $1,000 suit, phone pressed to his ear, his voice tight with fury. "I don't care what excuses you have. Orion's pulling out. Redwood already did last week. That's 2 contracts gone. The board's circling like sharks. Do you know what happens if we fail this quarter? We don't get another chance. We're done." Emma's pulse thundered in her ears. She dared not move. Ryan slammed his palm on the desk so hard that a paperweight rattled and rolled to the edge. He turned toward the window, his silhouette framed against the glittering skyline, and for a moment he didn't speak. The silence was suffocating. He dragged a hand over his face, voice cracking now, not with anger, but with a weight she had never imagined from a man like him. "If I fall alone," he muttered to himself. Emma's eyes widened. She had never heard anyone sound so defeated. The man who controlled billion-dollar decisions every day sounded human, vulnerable. Her breath hitched as she watched him straighten his shoulders, grab his leather briefcase, and storm out of the office without noticing her crouched in terror beneath his desk. The elevator chimed again. Silence fell. The soft hum of the building's air conditioning was the only sound left. Emma stayed frozen for several seconds, her body trembling, adrenaline pumping like a tidal wave. Her heart wouldn't slow down. Finally, she crawled out, every muscle tight, and sank into the chair he had just vacated. The leather was still warm. The desk smelled faintly of cologne and expensive paper. Scattered across the surface were reports, contracts, red-lined graphs, lines crashing downward like falling knives. Emma's fingers hovered over the papers. Her mind spun in chaos, flashes of numbers and clauses she half remembered from college days before she dropped out. They're going to lose everything. She glanced around the office, as if expecting him to burst back in. But the corridor outside remained dark. Her breathing steadied, but her chest still ached from the adrenaline. This company, these people, they don't even know I exist, she thought. Her hands clenched on the edge of the desk. But I understand this. I know what these numbers mean. I know there's another way. She shoved the reports back into place, grabbed her mop, and headed for the service elevator. Her sneakers squeaked against the pristine tile. Every step echoed with the thought that refused to leave her head. As the door slid shut and the elevator began to descend, Emma stared at her reflection in the steel walls. Plain janitor's uniform, tired eyes, but a spark burning there now that hadn't been there an hour ago. Her heart still pounded, but her jaw set with a quiet resolve. "I can help. I have to help." Outside, the city's neon glow blurred through her tears as she stepped into the night air. Her fingers tightened around the handle of her mop like it was a sword. The thought screamed in her mind as she walked briskly into the dark, humid streets of New York. "I can save them. I know I can." And with that, Emma Carter disappeared into the midnight city. No one yet knowing that a woman in a janitor's uniform had just decided to rewrite the fate of an empire. The next night, Emma Carter pushed open the service door with trembling hands. The hum of the city still echoed in her chest, but tonight she carried something far more dangerous than a mop. Inside her pocket was a folded piece of notebook paper. Her first move. She swept the hallway like usual, glancing over her shoulder, and slipped quietly into the CEO's office. The memory of crouching under that desk the night before still made her pulse race. She pulled out the paper, flattened it with a quick breath, and wrote in bold blue ink, "Use Clause 13B to renegotiate the Southern Branch contract. Staggered delivery over 120 days. Save 18%. It buys time." Emma folded it once, slid it under the corner of the monitor, and backed away like she'd just planted a bomb. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. What if he thinks it's a prank? What if I get caught? She grabbed her bucket and vanished into the elevator before anyone could see her. At dawn, Ryan Hayes stormed into his office, jacket slung over his shoulder, tie loosened. His face looked like he hadn't slept. He dropped his briefcase, reached for his keyboard, and stopped. There it was, a folded note he didn't remember leaving. He unfolded it slowly, eyes narrowing as he read. Clause 13B, staggered delivery, save 18%. His breath caught. Who wrote this? He stared at the door as if the writer might still be there. But there was no time to question. Ryan snatched his phone and barked, "Priscilla, get me the legal team now." Within an hour, a war room formed in the boardroom. Ryan slapped the note on the table. "We're using this clause. Call Southern Branch. Tell them we're restructuring the deal immediately." "Sir, that clause is rarely used," a manager stammered. "Do it." Ryan's voice cut like steel. "We're not bleeding another dollar." Emma didn't know, but by the end of that day, the renegotiation was complete. Hayes Corporation's losses slowed. A ripple went through the company, whispers of a sudden turnaround. Ryan leaned back in his chair that night, staring at the numbers climbing on the screen, whispering to himself, "Who are you?" 2 nights later, Emma returned with a second note, hands shaking less this time. Shift marketing focus to high-margin accounts, cut underperforming channels, target emotional storytelling. She tucked it beneath the same monitor, wiped her prints from the paper, and left before her shift ended. Ryan arrived early again, almost hoping to see another note. When he spotted it, his pulse quickened. He read, scanned, read again. The suggestions were bold, but they made sense. He summoned his marketing director immediately. New campaign, effective today. Focus only on high-margin accounts. Redirect funds, make it happen. By Friday, quarterly projections flipped from red to yellow. For the first time in weeks, hope crept into Ryan's voice as he addressed his managers. "We're not dead yet. Keep moving." And the notes kept coming. Night after night, Emma risked everything. A new strategy slipped under the monitor, a new spark of life injected into a dying giant. One note detailed how to renegotiate supplier terms without penalties. Another suggested a phased rollout plan that saved both time and payroll costs. Every morning, Ryan would rush in, his eyes scanning for that scrap of paper like a man searching for oxygen. Each time he read one, he felt the same jolt, shock, disbelief, and a surge of adrenaline. Who was this ghost strategist? A rival? A guardian angel? Within 2 weeks, numbers that once plummeted now steadied. Investors who had been sharpening their knives were suddenly asking questions, cautiously optimistic. And Ryan, this man known for his cool detachment, found himself standing in the middle of the boardroom with a grin he hadn't felt in months. "Schedule a meeting," he ordered. "We're implementing every single recommendation. I don't care if you have to work through the night." Downstairs, Emma scrubbed tile floors with aching arms, hiding a secret that made her chest burn with pride. Each night she pressed her pen harder, wrote faster, dreamed bigger. And every morning, Ryan's heartbeat quickened as he unfolded her words, fueling a corporate comeback no one could explain. Hope had returned. Hayes Corporation was breathing again, and neither of them could shake the question that now hung in the air like a spark waiting to ignite. Who was really saving this empire from the shadows? The whispered success of those mysterious notes spread like wildfire across Hayes Corporation, but no one knew the truth except Emma Carter. And one night, that secret slipped. It was 1 odd a.m., the supply closet door half closed, when Lily Thompson, Emma's closest friend on the night crew, caught her jotting something in a notebook instead of mopping. Lily narrowed her eyes. "You've been different lately. What are you writing?" Emma froze. The pen trembled in her hand. For a second, she thought about lying, but exhaustion and pride broke through her caution. She sighed and whispered, "Those notes Ryan keeps finding, they're mine." Lily's eyes went wide. "What? You've been feeding strategies to the CEO?" Emma nodded, pulse hammering in her throat. "If anyone finds out, I'm finished." But Lily didn't scold her. Instead, she grabbed Emma by the shoulders. "Are you kidding me? You saved this company, Emma, and you're still pushing that mop every night. Apply for the senior consultant opening. You belong up there, not down here." Emma laughed nervously, shaking her head. "Lily, look at me. I wear rubber gloves. My resume is 3 years of cleaning bathrooms." Lily slammed the notebook shut. "Stop it. You have a degree. You see things no one else sees. I've watched you fix my budget, help Jose refinance his car, solve problems none of us could. You've been a consultant all along, just without the title." Emma bit down on the end of her pen, heart racing. The very idea felt impossible, but thrilling. "Even if I try, they'll never take me seriously." Lily marched to her locker and yanked out a black suit she hadn't worn in years. "Try it on." "What are you doing?" Emma gasped, as Lily shoved the jacket into her arms. "Preparing you for war," Lily said with a fierce grin. That night, after their shift ended, Emma sat cross-legged on Lily's apartment floor. A single lamp lit the room as they worked. Lily scrolled through sample interview questions while Emma rehearsed answers, stumbling over words, then trying again. "Why should we hire you?" Lily barked in mock seriousness. Emma swallowed hard. Because I know how to turn data into action. Because I care about results." "Louder. Own it," Lily urged. By 3 a.m., Emma's hair was pulled back tight. Her hands ink-stained from writing bullet points. She paced the small living room like a soldier drilling before battle. Her heart swung between terror and excitement. But every time doubt crept in, Lily's voice cut through like steel. "You belong there, Emma. Say it." Emma straightened, eyes blazing. "I belong there." Monday morning arrived like a storm. Emma's palms were slick as she smoothed the borrowed suit over her frame. No uniform, no rubber gloves. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. She stepped out into the chilly New York morning, clutching a simple folder of her qualifications, and boarded the subway with commuters in sharp suits and polished shoes. Her knees bounced nervously the entire ride. By 8:55 a.m., she stood in the lobby of Hayes Corporation, not as a janitor this time, but as a candidate. The receptionist looked up. "Miss Carter, Mr. Hayes will see you now." Emma inhaled sharply and followed down the familiar hallway, each step echoing in her ears. The same hallway she had scrubbed at midnight was now bright with morning light. Executives bustling past. Her heartbeat roared louder with each step. The office door swung open, and there he was. Ryan Hayes stood by the window, flipping through a file. When he turned, his sharp blue eyes locked on her. For a heartbeat, neither of them spoke. Then Ryan tilted his head, brow furrowing slightly. "Have we met before?" Emma's chest tightened. She felt every ounce of her double life pressing down on her. But she forced a calm smile. "I don't think so, sir." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." Emma's legs felt like stone as she crossed the room and lowered herself into the seat. Her hands gripped the folder so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ryan scanned her resume, impressed. Columbia University, strong marks in finance, but you stepped away for a while. Why? Emma's breath hitched, but she remembered Lily's voice in her head. She met his gaze. Family emergency. I took care of my mother. But I kept learning. I followed the markets. I studied trends on my own. And I see solutions others don't. Ryan leaned back, watching her closely. The tension was electric. Interesting, he said, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Emma's pulse raced. Stay calm. Be bold. She spoke with a steady voice now, confidence rising with every word. For the next 30 minutes, Ryan questioned. She answered. Data, strategy, vision. She delivered each point with conviction. Every time doubt whispered in her mind, she shoved it aside and pushed forward. When the interview ended, Ryan closed the folder and stood. Emma Carter, you're not like anyone else I've met here. She stood too, knees trembling, but head held high. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Hayes. As she left the office, the hallway seemed brighter, her steps lighter. Her heart still pounded, but for the first time in years, it wasn't out of fear. It was out of hope. Emma Carter walked out of that building no longer just a night janitor with a secret. She walked out as a woman who had dared to fight for her place in a world that never expected her to rise. And this was only the beginning. Emma Carter got the call on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Her phone vibrated in her pocket as she stood on the subway platform. And when she heard the words, "Congratulations, you're hired," her knees almost buckled. She was officially the new senior consultant at Hayes Corporation. The world around her blurred for a second, rain hitting the pavement, the roar of a train passing. But inside, hope roared louder than anything she'd felt in years. By the next morning, Emma was on the 30th floor in a navy blue suit, heels clicking against the polished floor as if she'd been born to walk there. She delivered reports, pitched ideas, and stood confidently in meetings where executives twice her age listened carefully. Every second in that bright conference room, she forced herself to breathe steady, to believe she belonged. And yet, behind her calm smile, another reality gnawed at her. The rent was still due. Her mother's prescriptions still cost hundreds each month, and her first paycheck wouldn't come for weeks. So when the sun went down, Emma's life shifted in an instant. At 6:45 p.m., she slipped into the women's restroom on the 28th floor. Her reflection stared back at her, flawless hair and sharp suit. But there was no time to admire. She locked the stall door, dropped her leather bag on the toilet tank, and began to change at lightning speed. Jacket off, heels kicked aside, blouse folded and shoved into a plastic garment bag. Her heart thudded as she pulled out the wrinkled gray uniform from her backpack. The fabric smelled faintly of bleach, but she slipped it on, buttoning it up with trembling fingers. She hid the suit deep in the bag, wrapped in a trash liner for protection. In seconds, she tied her hair back, clipped on her name tag, and pulled a faded baseball cap low over her face. When she pushed open the restroom door, the building felt different. Gone were the approving nods and polite greetings. Now the executives passed without a glance, barely seeing her as she wheeled the mop bucket down the same hall where she'd presented financial projections only hours earlier. Every step was a risk. Her chest tightened with every click of approaching shoes, every sudden elevator ding. What if someone recognized her? What if Ryan Hayes himself walked by and saw her in this uniform, pushing a mop? The thought sent a rush of panic through her veins. But Emma kept moving. She forced her breath steady, her eyes on the floor as she swiped the mop across the marble, blending back into the shadows of the night shift. Her hands moved on autopilot. Empty trash bins, wiped down glass walls, polished the chrome railings, while her mind replayed every word she'd said in those meetings, wondering if she was building a future or setting herself up for disaster. At 9:30 p.m., she wheeled her cart past a conference room and froze. Inside, two managers were still working late, their voices carrying through the glass. Emma ducked her head, praying they wouldn't notice. She heard one of them laugh. "That new consultant's a firecracker. Hayes looked impressed today." Emma's pulse pounded so loud she barely heard the rest. A tiny smile tugged at her lips even as she wiped sweat from her brow. They were talking about her. They believed in her. But they had no idea that same firecracker would be scrubbing their coffee stains off the floor after midnight. As the night wore on, her body ached, but her spirit refused to break. She moved quickly, efficiently, finishing each task like clockwork. At the end of her shift, she returned to the restroom, reversing the transformation. Uniform off, cap stuffed away, suit back on, hair brushed out. She emerged as the polished professional once again, shoulders squared, heart still racing. Emma Carter lived 2 lives in one building. Every sunrise, she walked in as a rising consultant. Every night, she slipped into the shadows as a janitor. The fear of being caught never left her. Every corner held danger. Every glance a potential exposure. But she carried herself with quiet strength. Because Emma knew the truth. Survival meant sacrifice, and no matter how heavy the risk felt on her shoulders, she was willing to bear it. She would not let go of either world. Not yet. The late shift had just ended. Emma Carter stepped out of the service exit into the cold night air, clutching her backpack with the suit inside. Her muscles ached, her eyes burned from lack of sleep, but she kept her chin up as she crossed the dimly lit parking lot toward her beat-up sedan. The sound of high heels striking pavement made her stop. She turned and froze. A tall, poised figure in a cream-colored coat stepped out from behind a black, luxury SUV. Blonde hair perfectly styled, a diamond ring flashing under the streetlight. Victoria Blake. Emma's chest tightened. She'd seen the woman's face in company archives, old headlines about Ryan Hayes' broken engagement. But what was she doing here, alone, after midnight? Victoria's smile was cold. Emma Carter. Her voice dripped with honey, but her eyes were knives. Emma swallowed hard, clutching the strap of her bag. Do I know you? You should. Victoria stepped closer, the sound of her heels echoing in the empty lot. Then, she pulled a slim envelope from her purse and held it out between 2 manicured fingers. You're very talented, Emma. Senior consultant by day. And by night. Emma felt her stomach drop as Victoria opened the envelope and slid out a stack of glossy photographs. Under the harsh light, Emma saw herself frozen in time, pushing a mop bucket, bending to wipe down a hallway, emptying trash bins in the very building where she now presented strategies to executives. Emma's hand flew to her mouth. Where did you? Victoria cut her off with a low laugh. I have my ways. And if these get to the board, let's just say your little double life won't stay little for long. Emma felt the blood drain from her face. Her knees trembled. Please. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. Victoria stepped closer, voice sharp now. A janitor, playing dress-up, tricking my ex-fiancé into thinking you're some genius. You don't belong in that office, Emma, and you know it. Emma's heart pounded so hard it hurt. She reached out, fingers brushing the photographs. What do you want? Her voice cracked. Victoria leaned in until Emma could smell her expensive perfume. Her words sliced through the night like a blade. Resign. First thing tomorrow. Make up whatever excuse you like. But if you walk into that office as senior consultant again, I'll make sure every director, every investor, and Ryan Hayes himself sees exactly who you are. Emma's throat tightened. Tears welled in her eyes, despite her effort to hold them back. Please, don't do this. I'm just trying to survive. Survive somewhere else. Victoria shoved the envelope into Emma's hands, her nails grazing Emma's knuckles like claws. Because if you don't, I will ruin you. The SUV's door slammed shut. Its engine roared to life and sped off, leaving Emma standing alone under the flickering streetlight, gripping those damning photos. Her breath came in shaky bursts. She stared down at her own image, cap low, uniform stained, pushing that mop like she had 100 times. Her vision blurred as tears spilled over. I've worked so hard. I finally belong there. And now? The envelope slipped from her hands and hit the asphalt. Emma sank down beside her car, hugging her backpack to her chest as if it could shield her from the truth. The cold seeped into her bones, but all she felt was a crushing weight in her chest. If she quit, she would lose everything she had built. If she stayed, Victoria's threat would destroy her. In the distance, sirens wailed faintly through the New York night. Emma's tears splashed onto the photos at her feet. Her shoulders shook, but she wiped her face roughly, inhaled through gritted teeth, and forced herself to stand. The fear was suffocating. The sense of betrayal cut deep. But under it all, a single thought burned through her exhaustion and panic. I can't let her win. But what do I do now? Emma slid the photos back into the envelope with trembling fingers, climbed into her old sedan, and drove off into the dark. Heart shattered, mind racing, knowing her double life was hanging by a single, fraying thread. Emma barely slept that night. She sat on the edge of her bed, clutching the envelope Victoria had shoved into her hands. Her mother slept in the next room, unaware that Emma's world was cracking apart. Her pulse thudded in her ears as she replayed Victoria's words over and over, resign or be ruined. But as dawn crept through the blinds, a new thought burned through the fear. Why was Victoria watching me at all? Why now? Emma opened her laptop, scanning late-night news feeds and internal reports she'd saved from work. Then she saw it. Confidential details from Hayes Corporation's pending contracts had appeared in a competitor's proposal almost word for word. The realization hit her like a lightning bolt. Victoria wasn't just threatening her. Victoria was sabotaging the company. By 7:00 a.m., Emma's hands were shaking as she typed a message, encrypted and anonymous. Ryan, I know who's been leaking our strategies. We need to talk, privately. 2 hours later, Ryan Hayes closed the door to his office and motioned for Emma to speak. His expression was sharper than she'd ever seen. Victoria Blake, Emma said, her voice low but steady. She has photos of me in my janitor uniform. She threatened to expose me. But that's not all. She's the one feeding our competitors inside information. Ryan's jaw tightened. Are you sure? She bragged about it, Emma said, setting the photos on his desk. She's been using someone inside IT. I don't have solid proof yet, but I can get it. Ryan leaned forward, blue eyes locked on hers. Emma, this is dangerous. If you're wrong— I'm not, she interrupted. Her hands curled into fists. We need to catch her. Ryan exhaled slowly, then nodded. Then we do this together. But we do it smart. We set a trap. For the next 2 nights, Emma and Ryan worked in secret. Ryan had security installed discrete audio recorders in the executive conference room and his own office. Emma compiled data, crafting bait, fake proposals, and mock contracts designed to tempt Victoria. Ryan briefed the legal team quietly. If we catch her admitting to anything, I want federal authorities on standby. Emma barely ate, barely blinked, her mind running at full speed. She knew Victoria would make her move soon. Her arrogance demanded it. And Emma would be ready. The day of the board meeting arrived. Emma sat in the corner of the conference room, flipping through reports, pretending to be focused. Her stomach churned as Victoria swept in, heels clicking, eyes glittering with false confidence. Ryan, Victoria said sweetly, taking a seat at the table. I've been thinking about those new strategies you mentioned. Ryan kept his expression calm, but Emma saw the faint tension in his jaw. Really? He said casually. Funny. Those strategies haven't been shared with anyone outside this room. Victoria's smile didn't falter. Oh, I just have a feeling about how you operate. Emma's heart raced. The recording devices were live. They just needed Victoria to talk. Ryan leaned forward, voice measured. You know, I've been wondering, how did Titanium Corp know about our contract terms last month? Victoria's eyes flickered just for a second. Contracts get around? You can't control everything, Ryan. You're right, Ryan said, his tone sharper now. But someone's been controlling too much. Silence fell. Emma's hands gripped the edge of her folder. Ryan pushed a document across the table, a fake contract with a deliberate, planted error. Care to explain why this very detail showed up in Titanium's bid yesterday? Victoria's smirk faltered. You can't prove. Ryan didn't let her finish. We already can. He clicked a small remote on the table. From hidden speakers came her own voice, recorded days earlier. David, you owe me this. I need those files from Hayes Corp. It'll ruin Ryan, and I'll finally get what's mine. Victoria's face drained of color. The doors burst open. 2 FBI agents stepped in, badges raised. Victoria Blake, one agent announced firmly. You are under arrest for industrial espionage, corporate sabotage, And blackmail. Step away from the table. The room exploded in gasps. Board members stared, frozen, as Victoria pushed back her chair. "This is a mistake," she shrieked. But the agents were already pulling her arms behind her back, snapping cold metal cuffs onto her wrists. Emma's heart pounded with adrenaline as she watched Victoria's perfect composure shatter. The woman who had cornered her in the parking lot now stood humiliated, escorted out in handcuffs under the stunned gaze of the company's most powerful people. Ryan turned to the board, his voice steady, fierce. "For weeks, someone has been poisoning this company from the inside. Now you know who." Emma sat still, fighting the tremor in her hands. A rush of relief crashed over her so hard it made her dizzy. She had risked everything, and now the truth was out. As the conference room buzzed with shocked whispers, Ryan caught Emma's eye. Just for a moment, amid the chaos, they shared the same unspoken thought. They had won, and in that instant, Emma felt something powerful rise inside her. Pride, vindication, and a burning certainty that this battle was only the beginning of something far greater. The FBI agents had barely escorted Victoria Blake out of the building when the board demanded an emergency meeting. The conference room still smelled of tension and shock. Emma sat silently in the corner, heart still pounding from the adrenaline of the sting operation. She clutched her notebook, unsure if she even belonged in this room anymore. The chairman, Mr. Henderson, cleared his throat, his voice sharp. "Before we proceed to other matters, there's an issue we can no longer ignore. Miss Carter." Emma's stomach dropped. Her fingers tightened around her notebook as every pair of eyes turned toward her. "She's been posing as one of our senior consultants," Henderson continued, adjusting his glasses. "But according to these photos, submitted by Ms. Blake, before her arrest, Miss Carter also works here, as a janitor. This board cannot overlook such a deception." A low murmur rippled through the room. One director shook his head. "She lied about who she was." "She doesn't belong at this level," another muttered. Emma felt her chest tighten, her face hot with shame. The room seemed to tilt. She wanted to speak, to explain, but her voice caught in her throat. And then, a sharp crack echoed as a thick stack of reports slammed onto the table. Everyone froze. Ryan Hayes stood tall at the head of the table, eyes blazing. His voice thundered calm but edged with fire. "Enough." He pointed at the reports. "You see these numbers? These are our last 3 quarters. Sales up 32%, operating costs down 28%, a 15% stock rise in one day after the FBI raid. And do you know who made that possible?" He swept his gaze across the directors, daring anyone to answer. "It wasn't you. It wasn't me. It was Emma Carter." The room went silent. Ryan's voice rose, each word a hammer striking. "Yes, she pushed a mop at night. Yes, she hit her second job. But while you sat in meetings looking at spreadsheets, she saved this company. Twice." He lifted one of the reports, his hand shaking with emotion. "She saw what none of you could see. She brought strategies that turned us around when we were bleeding out. And when our competitor came for us, she risked everything to expose the leak. She didn't just do her job, she saved your jobs." One director cleared his throat, hesitant. "But Ryan, the optics?" "Optics?" Ryan cut him off, voice sharp as glass. "Do you want to explain to the press why you fired the woman every headline is calling the genius who saved Hayes Corp? Or do you want to stand behind her and prove that this company rewards true talent, no matter where it comes from?" Silence, then whispers. The directors shifted in their seats, glancing at one another, the weight of the reports in front of them suddenly undeniable. Henderson finally spoke, slower this time. "The board will take a vote." Emma sat frozen, hands clasped tight, heart hammering so loud she barely heard the first count. "All in favor of removing Miss Carter from her position?" A few hesitant hands rose, then lowered. "All in favor of retaining her?" Hands began to lift. One, then two, then a wave. "And one last matter," Ryan said, sliding a new proposal onto the table. His voice softened, but carried through the room. "She deserves more than retention. I'm creating a new role, Director of Innovation, 6-figure salary, full benefits, her own team. Let's put her where she belongs." Emma's breath caught. She blinked fast, sure she'd misheard. The board members looked at one another again. After a tense pause, Henderson nodded. "All in favor?" Hands rose around the table. The gavel struck. Motion passed. Emma pressed her hands to her mouth as tears spilled over. The room blurred, her chest heaving with relief and disbelief. She stood slowly, her legs shaky, and met Ryan's gaze. He smiled, a real, proud smile. "Congratulations, Director Carter." The room erupted in applause. Emma felt every beat of it in her heart. She had fought, she had endured, and now she was recognized. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, barely audible over the cheers. "I did it. I finally did it." In that moment, the girl who once scrubbed floors alone at midnight stood tall as the woman who had changed an empire. A year had passed, but for Emma Carter, it felt like a lifetime. She stood tall on the stage of the grand ballroom at the Plaza Hotel, the gold-trimmed curtains glowing under brilliant spotlights. The hum of hundreds of guests faded into a hush as the announcer's voice rang out. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Innovator of the Year, Emma Carter." The room erupted in thunderous applause. Cameras flashed like a storm, and Emma stepped forward, her black gown catching the light. Her hands trembled slightly as she accepted the crystal award from the presenter. For a moment, she simply stared out at the crowd. Executives, leaders, dreamers. People who had read her story in the headlines and believed in second chances because of her. Her voice shook as she spoke into the microphone. "A year ago, I was cleaning hallways at night and taking the elevator down before sunrise so no one would know who I really was. I thought my dreams had expired, but this company, and this man—" She glanced toward the front row, where Ryan Hayes sat watching her with a look that melted every nerve in her body. Proved that no matter where you start, your talent can change the world. The applause swelled again, the sound filling the massive ballroom. Emma's heart felt full, so full she could barely breathe. She blinked back tears and clutched the award tighter, thinking of every sleepless night, every risk she had taken. But the night was far from over. Just as the applause died down, Ryan stood from his seat in the front row. The crowd murmured in surprise as he stepped onto the stage, his dark suit sharp under the lights. Emma's brows furrowed in confusion. "Ryan?" she whispered as he reached her side. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to face the audience, his voice steady but thick with emotion. "A year ago, Emma Carter didn't just save this company. She saved me. She reminded me what true leadership, true courage, and true heart look like." The crowd grew silent, leaning in. Emma's heartbeat quickened. Ryan smiled at her, and in that moment the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of them. "Emma Carter," he said, his voice catching slightly. "You didn't just change Hayes Corporation. You changed my life." And then he dropped to one knee. The room gasped. 1,000 flashes went off at once, white bursts of light like fireworks. Emma's hands flew to her mouth as Ryan opened a small velvet box, the diamond inside glittering like a star under the spotlight. "Emma Carter," Ryan said, his eyes locked on hers, strong and certain. "Will you marry me?" The crowd roared, applause and cheers echoing off the chandeliers. Emma felt tears stream down her face, blurring her vision. Her knees weakened, but she didn't care. In that moment, she didn't see the cameras, the executives, or the hundreds of strangers watching. She saw only Ryan, the man who had believed in her when no one else did. "Yes," she breathed, then louder, through a sob and a laugh all at once. "Yes, yes, I will." Ryan slipped the ring onto her shaking hand. The audience shot to their feet in a standing ovation, the sound deafening, joyful, overwhelming. Emma let out a tearful laugh as Ryan rose and wrapped his arms around her. Under the glare of 100 camera flashes, they kissed. A kiss filled with every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every triumph that had brought them here. In that embrace, Emma felt the weight of her journey lift. From janitor to director, from anonymous to celebrated, from invisible to loved. Her story was no longer just hers. It belonged to everyone who had ever felt unseen, everyone who had ever dared to dream beyond their station. As the applause thundered on, Ryan whispered in her ear, "You didn't just change my world, Emma. You're my world." Emma's heart swelled as she looked out at the cheering crowd, her hand clutching Ryan's. The cameras kept flashing, immortalizing the moment. And in that blinding, beautiful chaos, Emma Carter smiled through her tears, knowing that this was only the beginning of a life filled with hope, love, and endless possibilities. Life lesson to take away. Emma's journey reminds us of something powerful. True worth isn't defined by titles, income, or where you start in life. It's defined by what you choose to do with the talents you have. She proved that even when you feel invisible, your ideas, your hard work, and your courage can create ripple effects far beyond what you imagine. In American culture, we admire resilience and innovation, but this story goes deeper. It shows that success often comes from ordinary people who refuse to give up. No matter your age or background, never underestimate yourself. Keep learning, keep contributing, even if no one is watching. Sometimes, the greatest opportunities appear when you're willing to step out of your comfort zone and take a risk on what you know in your heart is right. Now it's your turn. What part of Emma's story inspired you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more stories that remind you what's possible in your own life, hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Let's build a community where we lift each other up and celebrate hidden talents everywhere.